Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
You might remember this crazy story we covered last week about what was hidden on the hard drives of a deceased GOP operative named Thomas Hofeller. Those hard drives revealed that Hofeller played a central role in the Trump administration's efforts to add a citizenship question to the U.S. Census. They also showed that Hofeller had explicitly written that the result of adding the citizenship question would be an electoral advantage for the Republican Party and white people. Now we have another revelation from those same hard drives. According to the watchdog group Common Cause, Hofeller's files also reveal that North Carolina Republicans lied to a federal court in an effort to keep gerrymandered legislative districts in place for as long as possible. Those districts have been ruled unconstitutional, but the North Carolina GOP insisted there was just not enough time to redraw the legislative map before a special election. Hofeller's files tell a very different story. And here to explain, Ari Berman, senior reporter at Mother Jones, author of Give Us the Ballot, The Modern Struggle for Voting Rights in America. Ari, you've been covering Hofeller and this case. So what do we learn from these new files?
It's pretty remarkable, Chris. What we learned is that Tom Hofeller drew congressional and state legislative maps in North Carolina that were struck down as illegal racial gerrymanders. In fact, the state legislative maps, a federal court said, were among the most extreme racial gerrymanders ever seen by a federal court. So pretty amazing language. They said in 2016 you need to hold new elections in 2017. The North Carolina GOP said, we have no time. We haven't drawn the maps yet. Well, people discover 75,000 files on Tom Hofeller's hard drives, and what they find is that Tom Hofeller has in fact drawn all of these districts. And so basically the North Carolina GOP lied about the fact that Hofeller had drew the map so that they didn't have to hold special elections, allowing them to prolong their supermajority in the North Carolina legislature for entirely one more year.
Wait a second. So what we've learned, I think I didn't understand this when I read it. What we've learned is that when they go to the court and they represent that there's no time to redraw maps, they actually had already redrawn maps.
Exactly.
They were maps sitting on the hard drive of this guy.
They told the federal court, they said in legislative hearings, we haven't done anything to draw the maps. They look at Hofeller's files. He's drawn 97% of new Senate districts, 90% of new House districts.
He'd already done the work.
And now they're saying Hofeller just did it on his own time. We didn't instruct him to. Like, all you decide to do in your free time is draw hypothetically gerrymandered maps.
That is really remarkable. This is what they said to a federal judge. They didn't just they represented this in court.
They represented this in court. I mean, it's all under oath. The court, in fact, decided not to hold special elections because they believed North Carolina Republicans when they said there was not enough time. This allowed them to have a supermajority in the legislature in one of the most important swing states in the country for another year as a result.
There's a pattern here, right? So we're seeing it with the census and we're seeing it in North Carolina, which is it's not just using these tools, whether they're gerrymandering of the census, to kind of rig the game for your favored constituencies, white people, Republicans, but then it's the lying about it, which to me is just a tell that they understand exactly what they're doing.
They know that they are illegitimately wielding power. They know there's a problem with doing a citizenship question to explicitly benefit white people, which is why they're claiming they needed to enforce the Voting Rights Act, which everyone knows is a complete lie. They know that they just can't outright gerrymander, so they have these different justifications for why they're doing it. And really what this boils down to is they are trying to solidify their power by any means necessary. And then now you have this remarkable confluence where the guy that did all the gerrymandering is the guy that's now trying to rig the census. So it's really all come together in terms of this long-term Republican strategy for long-term minority rule.
And what's remarkable, too, are the historical echoes here. I mean, I don't know how familiar are people with sort of what happens as Reconstruction recedes in the South and Jim Crow rises, but the politicians then often would say, like, oh, no, it's not race. We're not trying to stop black people from voting. We just think there should be a literacy test. Like, obviously, people who vote should have a literacy test. Or we think there should be a poll tax. Or whatever it is. It was always a disingenuous. They were always lying about their motives to achieve precisely their aims, which was to make it harder for black people to vote and easier for white people to wield political power. And there's a really uncomfortable resonance to what's happening here.
And a lot of the rhetoric you see now, for example, about voter fraud is so similar to the things that you hear after the end of the Civil War and during Reconstruction. I mean, it's almost verbatim, the kind of rhetoric we have, and they're talking about, oh, we need a knowledgeable electorate, or we can't have illiterates voting, or we don't want to diminish the value of the vote, and all of these things, which are the same kind of arguments we're hearing today. They know they can't succeed on the merits. They know that if you told people, do you want a question that's going to explicitly benefit Republicans? Do you want the worst racial gerrymandering North Carolina has ever seen? People aren't going to want it. Even some Republicans might not want it. So they're having these new things. They're saying, oh, we're trying to better enforce the Voting Rights Act, when we all know that's not true.
It is Monday, the 10th of June of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. What another weekend have we experienced? Oh my. At least we have Mondays so that we can take all of that and then slice it, dice it, chop it up, stir it around, and come up with, well, a curated experience for you here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Thank you for joining us. Well, there's going to be some hearings in the House Judiciary Committee today. John Dean, who the ranking member, the minority member, he called him a felon. A felon. Oh, I apologize. The ranking member said something else. Actually, the felon remark attributed to John Dean was by John Cornyn. Senator John Cornyn. Seems like there's a little bit of competition between the House of Representatives and the Senate. And we're not even getting into, I don't know what to call it, with Elaine Chao and her husband, Mitch McConnell. What I don't understand is that somehow, even though it was public knowledge, everybody knew that Elaine Chao's family were the big Chinese shipping magnates. But somehow she never mentioned that on any of her applications and forms that she had to submit to be a cabinet member. Interesting about that. Even though everybody knows. And now news comes out. Here I am talking about McConnell. I wasn't even going to get into him and Elaine Chao. But Elaine Chao apparently has been pushing for certain kinds of bills to be passed that will benefit both she and Mitch. And Mitch has been pushing them through too. Oh my. Oh my. Well, that put aside, we have Trump rage tweeting over the weekend. Something's coming down really big. And you know what it is. Not just John Dean, who's called a felon by Cornyn, but the ranking member of the House, the minority, is laying down the rules about what you can say about Trump. You can't say that he obstructed justice. You can't say that he used his office for monetary gain. You can't use collusion. Okay, Nadler, suspend the rules like the GOP did the day Obama took office. Stop playing nice. Apparently there are rules in the House. I have never heard of a Republican following these rules. I remember the most racist and bigoted attributions towards Obama from the floor of the House, let alone in committee. Yeah, well, Republicans like to cherry pick and use a fine-toothed comb to eke out the most obscure rules and use it against the body politic and the great experiment. Cornyn's remark about John Dean testifying in the House Judiciary Committee today says everything we need to know about, well, is it really a bicameral system that we have in our congressional? Or is it a unicameral and we have a hostile foreign power? Because the question still remains, how many NRA laundered rubles are in the GOP pockets? How much is that? I could go on, but we actually have a curated show for you today. You know, starting off at the top, new revelations, and this is from that GOP operative that died recently, and they went through his hard drives. Well, going through those hard drives even deeper revealed that North Carolina Republicans lied in court to keep their gerrymandered and unconstitutional map just a little longer, like a year, so they can entrench and maybe get to the census. They could just get to the census. And they lied. But that's okay. Federalist Society judges usually determine that when the Republican GOP lies, it's not really lies. It's a means to an end. And the means to an end is okay if you're a Republican. You know that one. On the rest of the menu, a Trump fan was arrested for threatening to use his Second Amendment rights against Democratic members of Congress. Well, that's nice. I'm glad they arrested him. They'll probably let him out, though, on bail. They always do. The University of Alabama returned the largest donation in school history after the donor criticized the state's abortion ban. Wow. Gave it all back. The largest donation. Alabama. Well, what do you expect? And Detroit cops are criticized for marching with Nazis at the city's gay pride event. Now, the cops say they were just escorting them. And the Nazis did have a permit to cause havoc and harm at the gay pride parade. So, I mean, they're just following the rules. After the break, we then moved to the chef's table, where 500,000 people marched in Hong Kong to protest an extradition bill that would send suspects to mainland China to face trial. And Russian investigative journalist Ivan Golunov was placed under 2 months of house arrest in Moscow. Those convenient muggings are a lot more convenient when they're done outside of prison, especially when they're fatal. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. The bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is the chat room link monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly, for taking care of that. To the leftish of the page is our link to our Patreon site. And if you could please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, your contribution, that recurring contribution, goes a long way to helping us pay our bills and also accumulate the funds that we now need to purchase newish machinery to replace the workhorse machinery that has workhorsed for so long over these 8 years of continuous broadcasting and resistance by Netroots Radio. 24/7, 365, I got to tell you. So we've been working hard, and thank you for helping us do that. Most of what we do here comes out of our own pockets, but we would be unable to do this without you, because really you are our biggest contributor. I can get it out. It's only Monday. So thank you so much for your generosity. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, it's very easy. Just go to @NetrootsRadio. And Tom takes care of that, and we are forever in his debt for doing that too. Follow me on Twitter @Justice Putnam. Also, very important, I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes and then get that out on social media. The diary posts 10 minutes before showtime. So look for those links also on social media. Once again, very important part of this multimedia operation. It's not quite like the overhead projector, but it really is a lot like Footnotes, and where I might go off on some, at least I consider it a humorous tangent, you'll be able to flesh out the actual article that I've sliced and diced and butchered and, I don't know, deconstructed it to some sort of nouveau cuisine here at the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. So, yes, important that you check out the show notes and links diary on Daily Coast. Follow the show on Twitter @CookbookWest, and also pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, of course, iTunes. I guess they're going to be turned into Apple Podcasts. No, they'll still be iTunes Podcasts. But really, you can find these podcasts wherever podcasts can be found. They're there with everything. Everything is there. All right, let's look into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I don't know. I suppose a sitting president and any of his entourage, including family, while they're in office, they can't be indicted for inciting the riot, apparently. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of lone wolves out there seemingly working in consort with each other, at least when they're given the coded message in which to, activate on their programming. Emily Singer of Share Blue Media brings us this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A 54-year-old Trump supporter was arrested for threatening to kill an unspecified number of members of Congress. And he was using the same language in his threats that Trump himself has used in speeches throughout the years. According to court documents, Trump fan and Utah resident Scott Brian Haven made more than 2,000 phone calls over 3 years with threats to members of Congress. 2,000. Yeah, well, they were just building a case against him, apparently. In 2018, Haven said in a phone call with an unnamed Senate aide that there are far more Second Amendment people than whiny, crying liberals. Well, of course there are. But you haven't really been confronted by the muscular, in-your-face, oh, you think that you have a gun and that scares me, liberal? Give me a break. Mr. Scott Brian Haven. Once they get 3 names attributed like that, they're usually serial killers. And he was using the same phrase Trump used in 2016 when he suggested Second Amendment people could act if Hillary Clinton became president. He was a private citizen running for the highest office in the land, calling for armed insurrection if he loses. One would hope that he could have been arrested if he had not been elected, because a sitting president is not one who lost. Well, Haven then called their very same Senate office a month later, saying, "We will exercise our Second Amendment rights to address Democrat mobs that threaten conservatives." This is the guy calling up members of Congress and threatening their lives because, maybe he meant when there would be the Moral Mondays in North Carolina with Reverend Barber. Maybe that's what he meant. Or maybe he meant the Women's March right after Trump was inaugurated. Maybe he meant that. Maybe he meant the Jewish and liberal residents of Charlottesville, who are just the most rabid, violent people in the world, and those proud boys in their khaki pants and their polo shirts just had to restore order with their tiki torches and their chanting of "We will surround you" while they marched around a synagogue at night. Those damn liberals, whiny-ass liberals coming after our fine people, very fine people. Last month, Haven also called an unnamed House member's office and threatened to shoot him in the head for trying to remove a duly elected president from office. Wow, 54 is probably too young to remember Clinton. Well, luckily, law enforcement officials have gotten to these supporters before anything bad has happened. But the fact that these people are continually motivated by Trump's language to incite violence is terrifying. And it's true. I mean, you got that, Sayoc guy who mailed letter bombs and pipe bombs in the mail to numerous people that Trump attacked. You know, like Hillary and CNN and President Barack Obama, among others. No wonder Trump needs to retain this office for at least 5 more terms. Or as some people say, for the rest of his life. Adrienne Masha Varkiani of Think Progress bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The University of Alabama has returned a $21.5 million donation to a donor who spoke out for the need to protect access to abortion. U.F. Culverhouse Jr., a real estate investor and lawyer who was born and raised in Alabama but now lives in Miami, urged students and businesses to boycott the state over its near-total abortion ban. On Friday, the University of Alabama System Board of Trustees voted to return the largest donation in the school's history and remove Culverhouse's name from the law school. Alabama has enacted the strictest abortion law in the country, banning the procedure unless there is a serious health risk to the pregnant person, and they can only determine that after the woman has died, of course. The law considers abortion a Class A felony, even though it's constitutionally protected by the United States Constitution. And doctors providing the procedure can be punished with up to 99 years in prison. States' rights, Mo. States' rights. The law is set to take effect in November, but expected to be blocked in court before then. Well, you can only hope that you don't draw a Federalist Society judge now, can you? You can only hope. Last September, Culverhouse, whose father was owner of the NFL League's Tampa Bay Buccaneers, committed to donating $26.5 million to the school over the next 4 years. The university then renamed its law school the U.F. Culverhouse Jr. School of Law. The school said on Friday that it is returning the $21.5 million donated so far, but is rejecting that it has anything to do with politics. Oh, no. The school said Culverhouse had previously requested the return of $10 million and made demands about how his donation should be spent. You know, sort of like how the Koch brothers said that you can only teach neoliberalist courses in our business schools or any other type of neoliberal policies, and you'll get all this money. And how about this? You hire the professors that we want you to have to be able to advance this agenda in your school of higher learning. But it's okay when you're, destroying the great experiment, when you're trying to uphold the constitutional rights of our fellow citizens. Your money's not good here. Culverhouse said he had not asked for his donation back from the school in a statement. When Governor Kay Ivey signed the bill into law last month, Culverhouse said he could not stand by and watch. His attorney, Lawrence Kellogg, was quoted by Florida Politics, that's a blog about Florida politics, by the way, as saying that a boycott could work. 66% of the students at Alabama pay out-of-state tuition. A boycott by them could certainly be effective. You also strongly believes that out-of-state and international businesses should not be doing business in a state that discriminates against women. In an op-ed for the Washington Post on Friday, Culverhouse said he was disappointed in the school's decision and believed its actions were due to his position on abortion. It's been painful to witness administrators at the university choose zealotry over the well-being of its own students. But it's another example of the damage this attack on abortion rights will do to Alabama. The bill will not survive a court challenge and likely will cost the state a great deal in court fees and other expenses that could be used to help its citizens. But for those who support it, that collateral damage doesn't even merit a passing thought. Total victory must be achieved, even if it means running roughshod over people's rights and harming students. I might interject here that in this reporter's opinion, the GOP's platform is one predicated upon, what is that again? Running roughshod over people's rights and being as cruel as possible while you do it. It's right there. It's a party platform plank. Anti-choice activists and legislators throughout the country are pushing for extreme abortion bans in order to trigger legal challenges that could force the Supreme Court, with its new conservative majority of Opus Dei freaks, I might interject, to reconsider its 1973 landmark decision in Roe v. Wade. In 2019, 9 states have passed bills limiting access to abortion. David Edwards of Raw Story brings us this final offering here at the Bistro Cafe at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. River City Hash Mondays, by the way. Members of the Detroit Police Department are being criticized for accompanying a group of self-described Nazis over the weekend at the city's Pride Parade. Activists reacted in alarm on Saturday after being informed that the Nazi group had been given a permit to protest at the Pride event. According to the Detroit News, police were assigned to keep the protesters and attendees apart as they marched through the festival. No Detroit cops marched with gay, homosexual, LGBT people. They didn't. But they marched with the Nazis, escorted them, I should mention. Our police, when they should be protecting us, are protecting Nazis, one protester could be heard complaining in a video on Twitter. Oh, I apologize for stumbling and bumbling all my words today. It's Monday. I'll get it together before the end of the show, I promise. All right, after videos of the Nazi march circulated on social media, activists criticized the police for not taking a stand. Others pointed out that the officers were only following orders, just like they said at Nuremberg. History doesn't necessarily repeat, but it sure as hell resonates. All right, let's get to our break. And when we come back from that break, you know we are going to go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, a fresh take on the coming-of-age tale. Booksmart may not be an original concept, but the take on it certainly is. Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Deaver play Molly and Amy, best friends and overachievers who are about to graduate from high school. They've played it straight throughout school and are off to their respective places at the Ivies when Molly learns by accident on the last day of the semester in the school's unisex bathroom that the kids she has viewed as burnt-out losers are also off to prestigious schools but have also had lives outside of the classroom. This shatters Molly's illusions about herself and makes her determined to attend at least one cool party before graduation. And there's your setup. With a reluctant Amy in tow, the first challenge is to actually find out where one particularly promising party is being held, since all they know is that it is at the home of a classmate's aunt. Hilarity ensues as the girls figure it out. The end result is sort of a mashup of Superbad, which happens to star Feldstein's older brother Jonah Hill, and Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, but with female leads, female screenwriters, and a female director in the person of Olivia Wilde in her debut in The Chair. While those facts alone are noteworthy, Booksmart makes the grade for its smart humor, its insightfulness into what it's like to be a young woman today, and for the chemistry of the two leads. Feldstein is the breakout here, with Deaver a close second, and they get stellar support from Jason Sudeikis as the principal, Lisa Kudrow and Will Forte as Amy's supportive but out-of-touch parents, and Billy Lord as the weird rich girl who always seems to be around. Booksmart goes a long way towards redefining the buddy movie and will be hard to beat as Comedy of the Year. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. The English language version of Wikipedia has almost 6 million articles. And if you're a cheating student, that's 6 million essays, already written for you, footnotes and all. Except plagiarism isn't really an effective tactic. Just plug the text into a search engine and game over. But what about having a ghostwriter at a paper mill compose your final essay?
Standard plagiarism software cannot detect this kind of cheating.
Stefan Lorentzen is a data analyst at the University of Copenhagen. In Denmark, where he's based, ghostwriting is a growing problem at high schools. So Lorentzen and his colleagues created a program called Ghostwriter that can detect the cheats. At its core is a neural network, trained and tested on 130,000 real essays from 10,000 Danish students. After reading through tens of thousands of essays, labeled as being written by the same author or not, the machine taught itself to tune in to the characteristics that might tip off cheating. For example, did a student's essays share the same styles of punctuation, the same spelling mistakes? Were the abbreviations the same? By scrutinizing inconsistencies like those, Ghostwriter was able to pinpoint a cheated essay nearly 90% of the time. The team presented the results at the European Symposium on Artificial Neural Networks, Computational Intelligence, and Machine Learning. And there is one more aspect here that could help students. Your high school essays presumably get better over time as you learn to write, and the machine can detect that.
The final idea is, of course, to try to detect students who are at risk because their development in writing style is not as you would expect.
Teachers could thus give extra help to kids who really need it while sniffing out the cheaters too. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Pools, water parks, and other recreational water venues are popular places to relax and stay cool, but they can be sources of serious illness. Since 2000, nearly 500 outbreaks have been reported at recreational water venues in the U.S., resulting in over 27,000 illnesses and 8 deaths. Most were caused by parasites, bacteria, viruses, or certain chemicals in the water. Parents with young children who have diarrhea should not allow their children to swim or play in the water. In addition, bathers should check the inspection scores of pools and water parks and can conduct mini inspections using test strips before getting in the water. A few simple precautions can allow you to share the fun, not the germs. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. After a storm or disaster, it's important to eat only safe food. Throw away perishables like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and leftovers stored above 40 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours or more. Throw away food with an unusual odor, color, or texture. Throw away food that may have come in contact with flood water, including food in swollen, punctured, and damaged cans. When in doubt, throw it out.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In 2017, approximately 1 in 6 high school students reported a sports or physical activity-related concussion. Immediate symptoms of a concussion include headache, nausea, and double vision. Long-term, the effects of such injuries, particularly those that are more severe, can be life-changing. Healthcare providers, coaches, trainers, and parents should be aware of the symptoms of a concussion and how to treat them. A concussion protocol should be developed that includes withholding an athlete from practice and competition until all symptoms are resolved. While concussions cannot always be prevented, they can be treated in a way that decreases the chances of long-term health problems. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, Show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Here's the story of deep fakes, also known as how the Russians are upping their electoral interference game.
I'm Baratunde Thurston from The Onion, and also, mother. You're listening to the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
The chair of the House Intelligence Committee has made public the fact that the Russian government appears intent on influencing the 2020 elections in the United States. This time, not by releasing stolen emails and other documents, but rather by releasing fake videos known as deep fakes. Because carefully crafted, controversial fake videos are highly disruptive and hugely influential, and if carefully created, extremely hard to prove that they're fake and nearly impossible to prove who made the video. Reflect on the recent fake video of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, which is known as a cheap fake, really low caliber, and look how much currency and traction it got. Imagine what a high-quality, well-placed deepfake could do. As Adam Schiff, the head of the House Intelligence Committee, said, I cannot imagine anything more corrosive to a democracy than in an environment where no one can tell what is true anymore. You simply retreat to your tribe and view everything as true or false, depending on what party or what group you belong to.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1963. That was the day President John F. Kennedy signed the Equal Pay Act. The goal of the act was to end wage discrimination against women. It required equal pay for equal work. One of the leading advocates of the act was Esther Peterson. At the time, Esther was the highest-ranking woman in President Kennedy's administration. She headed the Women's Bureau for the Department of Labor. In 1981, President Ronald Reagan awarded Esther the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor. She was recognized for a lifetime of tireless work for women, workers, and consumers, including her efforts on behalf of the Equal Pay Act. It certainly was an uphill battle to pass the legislation. Similar proposals had failed to make it through Congress for nearly 2 decades. Many business interests lined up in opposition. Finally, in 1963, there was enough momentum to pass the landmark legislation. At the signing, President Kennedy reflected on the significance of the measure, saying, while much remains to be done to achieve full equality of economic opportunity, for the average woman worker earns only 60% of the average wage for men. This legislation is a significant step forward. Our economy today depends upon women in the labor force. 1 out of every 3 workers is a woman. Today, there are almost 25 million women employed, and their number is rising faster than the number of men in the labor force. The act had a profoundly positive impact for women workers. Yet today, that impact remains incomplete. Women still only make about 80% of the average wage for men. It is up to today's labor leaders to complete Esther's fight for true pay equality. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labor.
This is a Radio Labor report recorded on Monday, June 10th, 2019. I'm Mark Belanger. The International Federation of Journalists is holding its Global Congress this week, June 11th to 14th, 2019. The IFJ is the global union federation which represents journalists and other media workers. To find out more about the IFJ and the Congress, I talked to Jeremy Deere, the IFJ's Deputy General Secretary. I asked him first to describe the International Federation of Journalists.
The IFJ is the
global federation of all journalists, trade unions and associations across the world. So it represents 187 trade unions and associations in 141 countries, bringing together around 600,000 journalists and other media workers. And our role is both to support our national affiliates in their campaigns, in their advocacy, and to act as kind of the international lobbying and campaigning arm of the national trade unions. And so the kind of issues that we deal with on a regular basis, the safety and protection of journalists, the working conditions of journalists, issues around public service broadcasting and its funding, issues around media regulation and laws, issues around surveillance of journalists and cyber attacks on journalism, issues around freedom of association and collective bargaining, and so on.
The IFJ is holding its Congress in Tunis this week. Tell us about the Congress.
Every affiliated organization has the right to send delegates to the Congress, which takes place once every 3 years. It is the supreme decision-making body of the IFJ. Delegates are based on the number of members each affiliate has, and so we will have between 260 and 300 delegates attending. This time we have a record number of motions. Every union is entitled to submit motions, and we have a significant increase, in fact double what we had 3 years ago, which is a healthy sign of people interested in not only the issues but the democratic processes of the International Federation. This year the theme of the Congress is around journalism in the digital age, and we're looking at that in two key ways. One, the issues around fake news or disinformation and ethical journalism in the current climate. And we're actually reviewing the code of conduct for journalists for the first time since the 1950s and updating it to take account of changes in the information landscape. But the other side of digital is what it has done to working conditions. So we've seen massive job losses in newspapers and traditional media, new jobs being created in digital media, but often they are more poorly paid, more precarious. They're harder to unionize because instead of having one workplace of 600 people, you have 60 workplaces of 10 people. And that's posed challenges for the union. So we're bringing together some inspiring stories of union organizing from different parts of the world to try to make sure that our unions are focused on digital, not as a threat, but also an opportunity for union organization. And in terms of the motions, I mean, they cover a wide range of issues, from general issues around impunity, around workplace rights, around copyright and authors' rights, around protection of sources, to very specific motions on individual situations in countries. So there are motions on attacks on Palestinian journalists. There is motions from our Brazilian union on the effect of the election of the Bolsonaro government on workers' rights there, from our Turkish unions on the jailing of journalists in Turkey. And, of course, there are motions on union organizing.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. I'm Marc Boulanger. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. 5 countries, Vietnam, Niger, Tunisia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Estonia, won election to the UN Security Council on Friday. The new members will serve for 2 years and will face tough choices on issues like Syria and Venezuela that have divided veto-wielding powers on the council like the US, China, and Russia. Only St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Estonia ran in contested elections within their geographic regions, and both will likely find themselves at odds too. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is advocating for non-interference in Venezuela, a position in line with Russia and in opposition to the U.S., while Estonia won election over Romania by highlighting cybersecurity skills that it's honed by defending itself against Russia. St. Vincent and the Grenadines initially ran unopposed for its Security Council seat until El Salvador, a staunch opponent of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, entered the race just last week. That stunt seemed to backfire as it received only 6 votes compared to 185 for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And NASA announced Friday it will soon allow private companies and wealthy individuals to visit the International Space Station. It's an effort by the agency to try and beef up its balance sheet ahead of an eventual transition away from directly running the International Space Station. NASA said Friday space tourists hoping to visit the space station would have to cough up $35,000 a night for room and board, while companies hoping to film commercials and movie studios looking to use the real backdrop of Earth could also rent time in the cosmos. But let's not pretend that the incremental commercialization of NASA's rights to use the International Space Station will balance its budget. NASA currently spends $8 million a day to help run the space station. Luke Vargas, The United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook Speakeasy. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 63 degrees Fahrenheit, slated for a high of 97 to 99 degrees, and we're going to be up tomorrow around 102, and then Wednesday we are expecting a high of 105 to 106. Ouch! Well, currently we are sunny to partly cloudy conditions. Winds are out of the winds will be out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. They're out of the northeast currently. Light and variable. This is where our warm winds are coming from, more from the east. The winds, when you're sweating and you have a little bit of wind like that, it feels good. So it'll mostly be sunny today.
Grass pollen is very high, and I've been sneezing a little bit this morning. The air quality index, though, is in the good range at 13 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is very high at 9. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.12 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 58%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 51 degrees with rain. Paris is 65 and mostly cloudy with a thunderstorm advisory that could cause electrical disruptions of the power grid in Paris and the surrounding area, which is quite large. Rome is 92 degrees and sunny. Kiev is 88 and fair. Kabul is 74 and sunny. Hong Kong is 81 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 62 degrees with rain and a flood watch. Sydney, Australia is 57 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 75 degrees, mostly cloudy, and a high temp warning, which we also have here in our area. Excessive heat warning, I should mention precisely. And New York, New York is 65 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property,
and these people positively live around the world. James Pomfret and Anne-Marie Rowntree of Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Hong Kong was plunged into a fresh political crisis last night, Sunday, after more than 500,000 people took to the streets to thwart a proposed extradition law that would allow suspects to be sent to mainland China to face trial. Organizers said the turnout outstripped a demonstration in 2003 when 500,000 people hit the streets to challenge government plans for tighter national security laws. Those laws were later shelved and a key government official forced to resign. Yesterday's outpouring was already raising the pressure on the administration of Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam and her official backers in Beijing. She asked to withdraw the bill and resign, veteran Democratic Party lawmaker James To told crowds outside the city's parliament and government headquarters Sunday night. The whole of Hong Kong is against her.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Tatiana Makeyeva and Maria Kislyova of Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Russian investigative journalist Ivan Golunov was placed under 2 months house arrest in Moscow on Saturday, while he was investigated for drug peddling, as a court rejected a request from investigators to hold him in custody. Golunov, 36, was on his way to a meeting with a source when he was detained in central Moscow, and illegal drugs were conveniently found in his rucksack, according to police and his employer, the online news portal Meduza, based in Latvia. A lawyer for Golunov, who is known for investigating alleged corruption among Moscow city officials, said he believed police had planted the drugs on his client to frame him and that Golunov had been physically beaten. Golunov denies the charges. Dressed in blue jeans and a black T-shirt, he told people present in court during a recess that he had received threats in connection with an investigation into the funeral service industry. I did not commit a crime. I am ready to cooperate with the investigation. I have nothing to do with drugs, Golunov said. Golunov is accused of large-scale drug dealing, and investigators had asked the court to remand him in custody for 2 months. Outside the court, several hundred supporters chanted freedom, freedom. Earlier in the day, Golunov had been taken to a hospital after feeling unwell. An unnamed paramedic said he had multiple chest abrasions, bruised ribs, and suspected head injuries. The news agency RIA later cited Alexander Myskanov, chief doctor of the hospital, as saying that an examination had not shown evidence of any serious injuries. Journalists critical of the government or other authorities have led a dangerous existence in Russia since the 90s, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists. 58 journalists have conveniently been killed in Russia since 1992, of whom 38 were actually targeted for murder. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you know Netroots Radio is going to broadcast on. We're going to meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesday, so do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.